The Poet. From A Midsummer Night's Dream. It's not a poem on its own, but they have taken it out of Midsummer Night's Dream because it's been a very oft quoted. It's been taken out of the speech from A Midsummer Night's Dream, and it's quoted as a poem on its own. So it's been given a life of its own, right? And in the speech, Shakespeare compares a lunatic, a lover, and a poet, or the lunatic, the lover, the poet, and shows how all three are linked through their imagination. Creativity, imagination, irrationality, and emotional intensity. And the poem suggests that imagination can both distort reality and create beauty. So that's why the madman can imagine devils, and the lover imagines perfect beauty, and the poet creates entire worlds through imagination. Let's jump in. That's what AI gave me when I asked for a lunatic, a lover, and a poet. They all look similarly tortured, do they not? The lunatic, the lover, and the poet are of imagination all compact. One sees more devils than vast hell can hold. That is the madman. The lover, all is frantic, sees Helen's beauty in a brow of Egypt. The poet's eye, in fine frenzy, rolling, guess what? I don't have the other slide. Here we go. The poet's eye, in a fine frenzy, rolling, doth glance from heaven to earth, from earth to heaven, and as imagination bodies forth the forms of things unknown, the poet's pen turns into shapes and gives to airy nothing a local habitation, and a name. So the poet is not exactly the same as the others, because the poet doesn't just kind of like act out on their imagination. They actually take these imaginative ideas and feelings and puts them into words, airy nothing. These ideas the poet takes and then makes concrete. The rule of three is very, very clear in this poem. These three figures are grouped together immediately. And I mean, the question could be like, why even compare poets to madmen and lovers? Because these are all emotionally intense and imaginative. And madmen and lovers are living in heightened states of emotion. And the poet taps into these heightened states of emotion and heightened states of human experience. But the poet goes further than the madman and the lover, and actually then takes these heightened states of emotion and gives them a name, gives them words, creates something concrete out of them. One sees more devils than vast hell can hold. That's hyperbolic, right? The madman imagines exaggerated fears and horrors, and that shows imagination becoming irrational and destructive. The lover, all is frantic. Love is presented as emotional and irrational as well. Sees Helen's beauty in a brow of Egypt. So that's an allusion to Helen of Troy, the Trojan woman who was married off to the old Greek king Menelaus, and her fiance Paris and his brother got her back, and a war that lasted 10 years was fought over her by the Greeks and the Trojans. So the lover idealizes beauty even where it may not objectively exist, right? You've seen that. You've seen that with friends of yours. Oh my God, he's so hot. Oh my God, oh my God, oh God. Oh, and then you see the oak and you're like, or the girl, oh, she's so gorgeous. Oh, and then you meet her and you would go, because it's subjective, right? The poet's eye in fine frenzy, rolling its eye, powerful image. So the poet is inspired, emotionally intense, almost ecstatic. And this frenzy links the poem once again to madness. But you see, what the poet is doing is glancing from heaven to earth and earth to heaven. So is making a connection from the metaphysical to the physical, from the imagination to the concrete, right? And and looking at everything in between, looking at the concrete stuff on earth as well as ideas. It's a little bit vain of Shakespeare being a poet, hey? to kind of say this, but it's also true. And as imagination bodies forth, look at that metaphor. He's taking imagination and making it into something substantial, into a body of writing, a body of work. The forms of things unknown, ideas, thoughts. What were the thoughts that Shakespeare as a poet was consumed with? The nature of love, the certainty of the natural passing of time and death, and what happens to our legacy after death and how we remembered. And the poet takes those and turns them, gives them shapes in terms of a sonnet and words, and gives to airy nothing, I have this feeling. Poet writes it down and describes it, gives it a local habitation and a name. So the extract suggests that imagination can frighten, idealize, create. The poet's gift is the ability to see beyond the ordinary reality and those things that we experience as thoughts, emotions, fleeting ideas. The poet is able to turn them into something concrete through words. I will go further into this one in later workshops, because I do think it's quite a good one to come up, because talking about that metacognition, the ideas about ideas, and then they could link this with any of your poems, right? How has the poet in this case taken an abstract idea or emotion and made it concrete? Pause it now and have a crack at these questions. And if you want to see the answers, pop to our website, look for resources. You'll see more questions and suggested answers.
Please click subscribe. It's free. And for more content in this section, click on the playlist.